Every night, before your eyes close, your mind enters one of the most powerful states it experiences all day. In those quiet moments between wakefulness and sleep, the walls of the conscious mind begin to soften. The endless thinking slows down. The inner critic grows silent. And what remains is a mind that is far more open to the beliefs, emotions, and patterns it repeatedly encounters. Most people waste this window by falling asleep with stress, social media, bad news, or endless worries echoing inside their minds. Then they wonder why tomorrow feels exactly like yesterday. But what if the last thing your mind heard each night quietly shaped the person you became? What if transformation didn't require force, struggle, or constant motivation? What if it simply required directing your attention at the precise moment your subconscious was listening the most? Tonight, you're about to discover why a peaceful mind is never an accident, why effortless change follows invisible habits, and why the greatest shifts often happen while you're asleep. Stay with this until the end, because the final insight may completely change the way you think about sleep, identity, and your future. Most people believe that change happens through willpower. They tell themselves they will think differently tomorrow, act differently next week, or become a better version of themselves when the right opportunity appears. Yet every night, just before sleep, they unknowingly rehearse the same fears, regrets, and anxieties that have shaped their lives for years. The mind does not simply forget these thoughts because the day ends. Instead, it carries them into the deepest layers of consciousness, where they quietly become the blueprint for tomorrow. What you repeatedly think before sleep is not just a passing moment. It is a message to your subconscious about who you believe you are. As the body begins to relax, the analytical mind slowly loses its grip. The endless commentary that judges, compares, and questions starts to fade into the background. In this transition, your subconscious becomes more receptive. It is less concerned with whether something is objectively true and more interested in what is consistently repeated. This is why a single negative thought is rarely the problem. The real issue is repetition. Night after night, if you tell yourself that life is difficult, that people cannot be trusted, that success belongs to someone else, or that you are somehow not enough, your subconscious accepts these statements as familiar truths. It begins organizing your emotions, decisions, and habits around them without asking for your permission. This explains why many people feel trapped in patterns they cannot consciously explain. They wake up expecting a different life while carrying the same mental programming into every new morning. The subconscious always seeks consistency. It wants your external experience to match the identity it has been taught. If you have rehearsed limitation long enough, your actions will unconsciously protect that limitation because the mind values familiarity more than possibility. Now imagine reversing this process. Instead of ending your day with worry, you choose thoughts that reflect the person you are becoming. Rather than replaying embarrassing conversations or imagining future disasters, you quietly remind yourself that you are capable, calm, disciplined, and deeply at peace. At first, these words may feel unfamiliar. The old identity may resist them because it has existed for so long. But the subconscious does not measure familiarity by intensity. It measures it by repetition. Every night, you gently repeat empowering truths. You weaken the influence of old beliefs and strengthen new neural pathways that support a different way of living. This is not about pretending that life is perfect or denying genuine challenges. It is about deciding which thoughts deserve to become permanent residents in your inner world. Every thought is like planting a seed. Some seeds grow into confidence, patience, and courage. Others grow into fear, hesitation, and self-doubt. Sleep becomes the fertile soil where those seeds begin to take root. You cannot always control what happens during the day, but you can choose what you allow your mind to carry into the night. Over time, something remarkable begins to happen. Your reactions become calmer without deliberate effort. Opportunities that once seemed invisible begin to stand out. Decisions become clearer because they are no longer filtered through constant fear. Other people may assume your life changed because of luck or circumstances, but the real transformation began in silence. During those final moments before sleep, when you chose to rehearse a different reality, your subconscious was listening, and it faithfully began building a life that matched the story you repeated most consistently. That is why the last conversation you have each night should not be with your fears. It should be with the person you are becoming. Most people spend their lives waiting for external circumstances to give them permission to become someone new. They believe they will feel confident once they achieve success, become peaceful once life becomes easier, or develop discipline once motivation finally arrives. But this way of thinking keeps transformation forever in the future. The truth is far more subtle. Your circumstances rarely change your identity. Instead, your identity quietly shapes your circumstances. Before the world sees a different version of you, your mind must first accept that version as real. Every action you take is influenced by the image you carry of yourself. If you secretly believe you are someone who always fails, you will hesitate when opportunities appear. If you believe you are easily overwhelmed, even small challenges will feel enormous. These reactions happen so quickly that they seem automatic, but they are not random. They are expressions of the identity you have rehearsed over time. The mind constantly asks one silent question: what would someone like me do? Your behavior naturally follows the answer. This is why lasting change cannot begin with action alone. You may force yourself to wake up earlier, exercise consistently, or speak more confidently for a few days. But if your inner identity has not shifted, those actions eventually feel unnatural. The old self quietly pulls you back toward familiar habits because the subconscious prefers consistency over temporary effort. It wants your behavior to match your self-image. If those two are in conflict, the self-image almost always wins. Real transformation begins when you stop asking, "How do I become successful?" and instead begin asking, "Who is the person that naturally creates success?" There is a profound difference between trying to perform confidence and quietly becoming someone who no longer questions their worth. One approach depends on constant effort. The other grows from a deeply rooted identity that guides your choices without struggle. Before sleep, your imagination becomes one of your greatest allies. Instead of replaying memories of failure or worrying about tomorrow, picture yourself responding to life as your highest self would. Imagine speaking with calm certainty. Imagine facing challenges without panic. Imagine treating yourself with patience instead of criticism. Do not simply watch these scenes like a movie. Feel them as if they are already familiar. Allow your mind to experience the emotions of the person you are becoming. The subconscious learns not only through repetition, but also through emotion. What you repeatedly feel begins to shape what you naturally believe. At first, your old identity may resist this practice. Doubts may whisper that you are pretending or being unrealistic. That resistance is not evidence that the process is failing. It is evidence that your old patterns are being challenged. Every lasting transformation feels unfamiliar in the beginning because you are stepping beyond the limits of your previous self-concept. Growth always requires leaving behind a version of yourself that no longer serves you. As the nights pass, these quiet mental rehearsals begin influencing your days. You notice yourself pausing before reacting in anger. You make decisions with greater clarity. You become less concerned with proving yourself to others because your sense of worth is no longer dependent on their approval. The change seems almost effortless, not because nothing is happening, but because the deepest work is taking place beneath the surface. Like the roots of a tree growing unseen before its branches reach toward the sky, your new identity is establishing itself long before visible results appear. Eventually, the life around you begins reflecting the person within you. Opportunities are approached differently. Relationships improve because your energy changes. Challenges become invitations to grow rather than reasons to retreat. None of this happens because the world suddenly becomes easier. It happens because you stopped waiting for the world to tell you who you are. You decided first, and once your subconscious accepted that decision, your actions, habits, and choices naturally aligned with the person your future had been waiting for all along. Many people believe that strength is measured by how much pressure they can endure, how loudly they can defend themselves, or how relentlessly they can push forward despite exhaustion. They admire constant activity, endless ambition, and emotional intensity. assuming these qualities are signs of resilience. Yet genuine inner strength is often much quieter. It is found in the person who remains centered while chaos unfolds around them, who chooses clarity over panic, and who responds thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. True power is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to remain present without allowing emotion to control your actions. The human mind has a natural tendency to hold on to emotional experiences long after the moment has passed. A single argument, an unexpected disappointment, or a careless remark from someone else can echo through your thoughts for hours. By the time night arrives, many people carry an invisible weight into bed. Their bodies may be lying still, but their minds continue reliving conversations, imagining future conflicts, or creating stories that have not even happened. Instead of allowing sleep to restore them, they spend those precious moments feeding the nervous system with stress. Then they wake up wondering why they feel tired before the day has even begun. Peace is not something that magically appears when life becomes easier. It is a discipline that is cultivated one conscious moment at a time. Before sleep, you have a unique opportunity to release what no longer deserves your attention. You can acknowledge the events of the day without becoming imprisoned by them. Every experience carries a lesson, but not every experience deserves permanent space in your mind. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. The moment you stop carrying unnecessary emotional burdens, your mind begins recovering its natural clarity. This does not mean suppressing feelings or pretending that painful experiences do not exist. Suppression only pushes emotion deeper into the subconscious, where it quietly influences your behavior in ways you may never recognize. Instead, observe your emotions with curiosity rather than judgment. Notice frustration without becoming frustration. Notice fear without believing every fearful thought. Notice sadness without convincing yourself that it defines your life. When you create even a small space between yourself and your emotions, you begin discovering that you are the observer, not the storm itself. Each night offers an opportunity to train this awareness. As your breathing slows and your body relaxes, allow every unnecessary tension to dissolve. Imagine each exhale carrying away resentment, disappointment, and anxiety. There is nothing you need to solve in this moment. Nothing you need to prove. Nothing you need to force. Simply allow your nervous system to remember what calm feels like. The more often you experience this state before sleep, the more familiar it becomes. Eventually, your mind begins choosing calm not only at night, but throughout the day. People often assume that peaceful individuals are somehow passive or weak. The opposite is true. A peaceful mind sees situations more accurately because it is not distorted by panic or emotional impulse. Decisions become wiser because they arise from clarity instead of fear. Relationships become healthier because reactions are replaced by thoughtful responses. Challenges lose much of their power because they are no longer amplified by unnecessary inner resistance. Calmness is not withdrawal from life. It is complete engagement with life from a place of balance. Over time, this quiet practice reshapes your entire experience of the world. Situations that once triggered anxiety no longer control you. Criticism loses its ability to define your worth. Delays no longer feel like disasters. Success no longer depends on external validation because your stability comes from within. Others may notice a different energy around you without understanding where it came from. They may call it confidence, maturity, or wisdom. In reality, it began with something much simpler. Night after night, you stopped carrying yesterday's emotional residue into tomorrow. You allowed your mind to rest in stillness, and from that stillness emerged a strength that no circumstance could easily shake. This is the silent power of emotional calm, the kind of strength that transforms your life not through force, but through unwavering inner peace. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is the belief that everything must happen according to our timeline. We grip tightly to outcomes, believing that if we think harder, work longer, or worry more, we can force life to unfold exactly as we desire. Yet the tighter we hold, the more tension we create within ourselves. We mistake control for security, not realizing that excessive control often blinds us to opportunities that only appear when the mind is open. There is a profound difference between taking purposeful action and trying to dominate every result. One creates peace. The other creates exhaustion. Many people spend their days fighting invisible battles. They argue with the past, wishing events had happened differently. They resist the present, believing it should look different than it does. They fear the future, imagining endless possibilities of failure. In doing so, they divide their energy among moments they cannot change, leaving very little strength for the only moment that truly belongs to them, the present. This constant resistance becomes so familiar that they no longer notice it. Stress begins to feel normal, rest feels unproductive, silence feels uncomfortable. But beneath all of this struggle lies a simple truth. Life moves most naturally when we stop resisting what already is. Acceptance is often misunderstood. Many assume that accepting reality means giving up, lowering standards, or abandoning ambition. In truth, acceptance is the foundation of intelligent action. You cannot clearly respond to a situation that you refuse to see. The moment you stop arguing with reality, your mind becomes free to ask a far more useful question. What is the wisest step I can take now? That question carries far more power than endlessly asking, why is this happening to me? One leads to growth. The other keeps you trapped in resistance. Before sleep, this lesson becomes especially important. The mind has a habit of replaying unfinished stories. It searches for answers, perfect conversations, missed opportunities, and imagined futures where everything finally makes sense. Yet, sleep is not the time to solve every problem. It is the time to release the illusion that everything must be solved tonight. Some answers require patience. Some doors open only after the mind has stopped desperately searching for them. The subconscious continues working even while you rest, often connecting ideas and revealing insights that force could never produce. Think of water flowing around a stone in a river. It does not argue with the obstacle. It does not become frustrated because the path is different than expected. It simply adjusts, continuing forward with quiet persistence. Over time, that gentle flow shapes even the hardest rock. Strength is not always loud or aggressive. Sometimes the greatest strength is the willingness to remain flexible while continuing to move in the direction of your purpose. When you lie down each night, imagine placing the weight of your expectations beside you instead of carrying them into sleep. Release the need to know exactly how every goal will unfold. Trust that your responsibility is to prepare yourself, not to control every detail of the journey. You can choose your attitude, your effort, your discipline, and your attention. Beyond that, life often unfolds through countless factors outside your control. Fighting those realities only drains the energy needed to recognize the opportunities hidden within them. As this practice becomes part of your life, you begin noticing a remarkable shift. You still work hard, but your effort is no longer fueled by fear. You still pursue meaningful goals, but your happiness no longer depends on immediate results. Delays no longer convince you that you are failing. Unexpected changes no longer destroy your peace because you understand that the path is rarely straight. Every challenge becomes a teacher instead of an enemy. Every setback becomes an invitation to grow instead of a reason to quit. Eventually, you realize that effortless living does not mean a life without challenges. It means moving through challenges without creating unnecessary inner conflict. Your actions become more focused because they are no longer scattered by anxiety. Your mind becomes clearer because it is no longer consumed by endless resistance. You stop chasing life with desperation and begin walking alongside it with quiet confidence. Ironically, it is often in this state of surrender, not surrender to defeat, but surrender to wisdom, that the doors you once struggled to open begin opening on their own. When your inner world is aligned with patience, trust, and steady action, life no longer feels like something you must conquer. It becomes something you learn to move with, and in that harmony, transformation unfolds naturally. Every meaningful transformation begins long before anyone else can see it. The world often celebrates visible success, the promotion, the achievement, the recognition, the breakthrough, but it rarely notices the quiet nights that made those moments possible. What people call an overnight success is usually the result of countless invisible decisions made in solitude. It is the product of a person who chose, again and again, to become someone different before life gave them any evidence that the change was working. This is why your future is not waiting for a better version of your circumstances. It is waiting for a better version of you. Each night, as your body prepares for rest, you stand at a quiet crossroads. One path leads back into the familiar identity that has repeated itself for years. It whispers old stories, old fears, old limitations, and old excuses. The other path leads toward possibility. It invites you to imagine yourself not as the person you have been, but as the person you are capable of becoming. The difference between these two paths is not talent or intelligence. It is the willingness to repeatedly choose the identity that aligns with your highest potential. Your mind is constantly constructing an image of who you are. That image influences every decision you make. It determines whether you speak up or stay silent, whether you take action or hesitate, whether you see opportunity or only obstacles. If your inner picture remains unchanged, your life will naturally continue following the same direction. But the moment that picture begins to evolve, your actions begin changing almost without effort. You no longer force yourself to become disciplined because discipline feels consistent with who you believe you are. You no longer chase confidence because confidence quietly grows from the certainty of your identity. Before sleep, close your eyes and see yourself living from that future identity. Imagine waking with purpose instead of hesitation. See yourself handling difficult conversations with calmness rather than fear. Picture yourself making wise decisions without endless doubt. Imagine walking through challenges with patience, strength, and quiet determination. Do not simply observe these scenes as distant fantasies. Experience them as though they are already familiar. Feel the emotions of gratitude, confidence, and peace as if they already belong to you. The subconscious responds more deeply to repeated emotional experiences than to empty words alone. There will be nights when nothing seems different. You may wonder whether these quiet moments are accomplishing anything at all. That doubt is natural, because the deepest forms of growth are rarely dramatic. A seed beneath the soil gives no visible sign of life for a long time, yet every day it is developing roots that will eventually support an entire tree. If someone judged the seed only by what appeared on the surface, they would believe nothing was happening. Human transformation follows the same rhythm. The invisible work always comes before the visible results. As you continue this practice, your daily life begins reflecting the changes that first appeared in your imagination. Your choices become more intentional. You stop seeking approval from people who cannot define your worth. You become less distracted by temporary setbacks because your attention is fixed on the person you are becoming rather than the obstacles in front of you. Small habits begin replacing old patterns. Your words become kinder. Your thoughts become clearer. Your reactions become calmer. None of these shifts happen because someone else changed your life. They happen because your inner world gradually reshaped the way you engage with the outer world. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that they must become perfect before they deserve a better life. But perfection is not the goal. Growth is. Every evening is another opportunity to take one small step toward the person you wish to become. Some nights your faith will be strong. Other nights it will feel fragile. Continue anyway. Consistency is far more powerful than intensity. A calm, steady practice repeated over months will always accomplish more than bursts of motivation that quickly disappear. Eventually, there comes a moment when you realize you are no longer pretending to be your future self. You have become that person. The habits that once required effort now feel natural. The peace you once searched for exists within you. The confidence you admired in others quietly lives in your own actions. You look back and understand that your life did not change because of one extraordinary event. It changed because, night after night, while the world was asleep, you patiently planted new beliefs into the deepest part of your mind. Your future was never something waiting in the distance. It was being created every evening, one thought, one breath, and one intentional moment at a time.